Hello, and welcome to Sin City Soundwaves, where we celebrate growing up in Las Vegas and music memories. Beyond the casinos and the showrooms are the locals. These are our friends, colleagues, neighbors, people we went to school with, work with, and see every day. We talk about how Vegas has changed and what's the same. We talk about the music we listen to now and what music reminds us of our youth. We talk about who we've seen in concert here in Vegas and who we'd like to see. We ask if there is a quintessential Vegas song. This week, our guest is Michael Fitzgerald, a co-founding member and drummer of the Las Vegas-based brutal death metal band Guttural Secrete. Mike is currently the drummer of local Las Vegas-based death metal band Nemesism. He's been fortunate over the years to have performed at large festivals with Guttural Secrete, the Maryland Death Fest, Netherlands Death Fest, and he's opened for several large acts such as Cannibal Corpse, Deicide, Nile, and Celtic Frost. He's currently in preparation to record the second EP with his fellow bandmate and good friends in Nemesism, and hopes to have that released in late 2024 or early 2025. Welcome to Sin City Soundwaves, Mike. Thanks for being here. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
So let's start out. We want to know what schools you went to in the Valley. You were born in Boulder City, though, right?
I was born in Vegas, but raised in Boulder. It was Andrew J. Martha P. King Elementary School. They were two separate schools, kindergarten through second, and then second through fifth, and then junior high was Garrett Middle School, and then
you graduated Boulder City High School.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first piece of music you ever bought for yourself, like with your own money?
With my own money, I bought the original compact disc when they first came out with the long boxes of Metallica's Master of Puppets. I was so excited to have it. I bought it before I even had a CD player. My mom and dad were absolutely furious with me because back then the compact discs
they were expensive.
Yeah, they were like $20-$25 for the long box. But when I saw it in the shelf at the record store, my favorite Metallica album of all time. So yeah, my dad was not happy with me.
So when you bought it and you didn't have a player to play it on, how long did you have it before you actually had something to play it on?
It was a couple months.
Okay.
My parents bought me a little Sony boombox that had a disc player in it. I got to find and play it, but it might have been Christmas that year because I think I bought it in summertime.
So you had to wait a bit of time.
Mm-hmm. I didn't care. I had it.
And do you remember where you bought it from?
Yeah, there was a lady that came into Boulder City that bought a little building, and she called it the Rock Shop, and it was on Nevada Highway, right next to, at the time, I believe it was called Happy Days Diner. It was an old 50s diner. I ended up getting my first job in. But yeah, it was amazing because everybody I was friends with at the time that was either listening to punk or thrash or metal, whatever, they all found out about it real quick, and we used to just go there and stare at all of her cassettes.
Okay.
And CDs. We thought it was so cool because we never thought there would be a record store in Boulder City.
Okay.
Now she was only in business for maybe a year or two, and then she left. I think that was the only actual music record store that was in Boulder.
So when you went to purchase it, was it an intentional purpose, or were you just walking through and saw it and went, I have to have it?
I was walking through and saw it, and I had just enough money in my pocket. I don't care.
Did you have to count your change for the tax?
Sure, I did. The thing I remember most about that transaction was when I got home and showed it to my parents. They flipped.
But you were so happy it didn't matter.
Yeah, I was like, oh well.
Did you get in trouble, like grounded or something?
I got grounded for the weekend and got the old talking from my dad, and that's not responsible. But when you're that young and you're getting into music and wanting to become a musician, I think that was before I bought my first drum kit. I was like,
so even if you were grounded, you had your CD and you could sit and look at the liner notes.
Yeah, totally.
Do you remember the first concert you went to see?
I do. There's two of them that happened around the same time. But if I'm being honest, the first one I went to was Alice Cooper and the Scorpions at the Aladdin. My best friend, James Berry. We were so excited. His sister dropped us off and picked us up. We dyed our hair purple. We couldn't believe that we got Alice Cooper open for the Scorpions. But yeah, that was before they remodeled the Aladdin.
Do you remember what year that was?
It was 90. 91 or 92. Yeah, it was 91 or 92, somewhere in there.
Do you still have the ticket stub?
Somewhere I do. Yes, I do. Because I've saved, outside of the ones that I've lost by accident, I've got a big photo album.
People.
Mhm.
Have you seen Alice Cooper like on TV or anything like that before that? Did you have Allison's albums?
No, I didn't have any Scorpion albums, any Alice Cooper
Okay.
albums. I had just started to get into Metallica and Iron Maiden. I think the only reason why we went is because my best friend's sister, Karen, she's a few years older than we were, and she lived up the street from him. She used to listen to that kind of music. She was into the 80s hair metal and stuff like that. And I think she told James, hey, you and Mike want to go see Alice Cooper and the Scorpions? I'll take you guys. And well, that was cool. That was a good first concert to go to.
One of the things that used to be standard for going to the hair metal shows was you would go early, hang out in the parking lot. Did you go then, or did you just go to the show?
We got dropped. We were too young to drink. Well,
you didn't have to go and drink in the parking lot.
Yeah, we were so young. I don't think we were in that. We were more like, we couldn't believe that we were going to see Alice Cooper and Scorpion. So yeah, because I was probably 11 or 12.
Okay.
And he was 15 or 16.
So he was a little bit older.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No.
Do you remember where you sat?
Yeah, we were up in the third or fourth section, up from the front of the stage on the left-hand side. So
okay.
To the stage, we were up on the left, and we stood the whole time.
Okay. Okay.
There was a band that opened called My Head, which I think they only released one album.
Okay.
And I remember they came out. They were like a three-piece. The lead singer played guitar, and they had a bass player and a drummer. And I remember him and I being excited about them because they had more of a new modern sound at that time.
Okay.
And we were fired up about them. Like, wow, these guys are amazing. And then, of course, Alice Cooper came out and just
spectacle.
I think Jimmy DeGrasso was playing drums for him at that time. And Jimmy DeGrasso ended up playing for Megadeth and played for Suicidal Tendencies. I think he was playing for Alice Cooper on that tour.
Now, were you playing drums at that time at all? No.
And, I didn't get my first real kit till I was like 14 or 15. So this was a couple of years before that.
Were you starting to get the bite? That's what you wanted to do? Did you buy a t-shirt from a concert?
No t-shirt.
No t-shirt.
Yeah, I don't think I had enough money. My parents gave me the money to get the ticket.
And
maybe just enough to get some refreshments or something.
What's the best concert you've seen in Vegas?
That's a hard one because I've been to a lot over the years.
Or do you have to divide it up like best thrash concert? I like this question because I don't know that I have a best. I have to divide it up depending upon my mood. Or thinking about best genre. Like I have a best punk. Do you know what I mean?
I could do that. I could do that, but that's really long-winded. If I'm being real from a musician standpoint, I think the best show I've seen in terms of musicians just being on fire and being in the groove was Rut.
Okay.
And this would have been during the Time Machine tour when they went out and celebrated moving pictures. And that was also around the time when there was a lot of rumors floating around Neil coming vocal about not wanting to tour anymore. So I made it a point to see them twice on that tour because lucky.
Was that at the Atlantic?
No, that was Mandalay Bay. So they actually did 2 Vegas dates on that run, on that North American run. When they went out and did the first leg, they took a short break and then they announced the second leg. And I don't know why. It's because Neil lived in Southern California. I don't know, but they ended up doing a second show on the second leg. So I saw it twice on that tour. I mean, I would say that show, 2 shows, and both of them were rushed. They were on fire on the Time Machine tour, and then that very last 40th year anniversary tour, where Neil on the second set busted out the school double bass set that he played on in the 70s and the 80s.
Oh yeah,
which he hadn't played that configuration live in many years.
Yeah.
So when they rolled that kit out for the second set, a lot of drummers don't see Rush because of it.
Yeah.
And we just flipped.
Yeah.
We were like, no fucking way. That's sorry, I don't mean to cuss, but
that's hard.
He's going to play that kit again because somewhere in the 90s, he had taken that kit and kind of like simplified it. He got rid of one kick drum and he moved to a single kick drum with a double pedal. He shifted all of his toms up to the left. He played like that for many years. So to see him do that, freaking, I remember nudging my wife going, look at that. He's playing the old double bass kit that he was known for back in the 70s and 80s, but was played so well. I just kept going. I can't believe how good they sound. I can't believe how hyped they are. All the intricate progressive stuff that they did in the 70s that they played in the second set, Xanadu and Hemispheres and Jacob's Ladder and Nemesism.
So a lot of people have been really impressed with Neil Peart's performance.
Yeah.
We just went and saw Scorpions when they were here with the residency, and I was super impressed with Mickey D. Solo blew me away. Not only his performance, but his age, and he went like 25, 30 minutes for me. And standing up and just kept playing and playing. And just the stamina of his drumming blew me away.
For an older gentleman, he's taking good care of himself.
He had incredible muscles. And then you just talking about Neil Peart. I'm like, oh my gosh, a drum off? I don't know that anybody could rival Mickey D right now. As a drummer, I'm going to ask you about being able to do that kind of stamina and being able to do that.
Well, I can only speak as somebody who follows musicians. I can't speak as somebody who's toured extensively because I record extensively. The one thing I can tell you is if you're going to play that style of drumming, whether it's hard rock or metal, even death metal, you got to be fit.
Yeah.
If you're not, you're going to struggle, and your performance and your band's performance is going to suffer. But you have to do everything right, though. You have to eat right, no alcohol, no drugs, obviously, all that stuff. But you also have to warm up and stretch properly, because if you don't, whether you're rehearsing or you're playing show night after night or every other night or whatever for 3, 4, 5 weeks at a time, if you don't do those little things, those preparation things, you're going to get tendonitis. You're going to have injuries.
Well, I was saying,
you got to try to it's hard.
And you're sweating like crazy, even with the fans going.
You got to take good care of yourself in the off season. When you're not touring, you've got to have a routine. You got to exercise. You got to eat right. You just got to live a somewhat clean life.
How do you stay hydrated when you're trying to make sure you're keeping the tempo? And you can't stop because you're keeping the tempo for the band through a song, and then you're going 30 minutes through a drum song.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Let's use Mickey D as an example.
Okay.
He can do it because he's been doing it for years.
That's like his performance.
His performance.
So if you're running a marathon, you practice for that.
Yeah, go back and watch all his footage. There's tons of live footage of Motorhead when he was in Motorhead. And that was really high energy and tempo. And they would, Lenny and the guitar player would step away and he'd do a little drum solo. But
there's nothing little drum. There's no little drum. There's nothing little about Motor.
Just a notable mention about Mickey D. He's played on some albums that maybe a lot of people don't know that he played on. He played on a few King Diamond albums. The drum fill intro on the first track on Them for King Diamond is one of the most iconic drum fills ever recorded. It's up there with Iron Maiden's Where Eagles Dare, Peace of Mind. And then he also, this is just like fun for me, he played on a Don Dokken album that I absolutely loved. Yeah. So Mickey D's awesome.
I didn't mean to derail from Neil Peart. It was just, I had recently seen him, and he just impressed me to no end. So
it's all good. He's one of the best.
Yeah.
He's one of the best.
So. And I went out to buy the Mickey D t-shirt just because they were all sold out. I should have left in the middle of the drum solo. And I'm like, darn it. I think everybody went out during the drum solo to go buy. Anyway.
Let's go get a beer and get some merch.
We should have brought more merch for that. Who would you like to see to perform in Vegas that hasn't? And the reason I asked this question is there was a time in the 80s and 90s where people were not coming to Vegas to perform. They used to go to LA because it's not that far away from Vegas. And we didn't have a whole lot of venues here. Or they would go to Phoenix. Similarly, right? You could jump on a plane. You could be in Phoenix about an hour and a half, one thing LA, and they would bypass Vegas. So we didn't get a whole lot of people, or people as an in-between, or it's the end of the tour and they finish here and then gamble for a couple of days.
Right.
So we used to get excited in our junior high school because people would actually hear and we'd go see whoever came to encourage them.
Right.
So I like to ask, who would you like to see perform in Vegas that maybe you haven't?
I've seen them perform in LA, but they've never been to Vegas. It's a band from New Zealand called Ulcerate. It's progressive, technical, atmospheric death metal. They are friggin' amazing. They're an amazing band. They're a 3-piece. They sound like they're a 5-piece. Phenomenal. They've never played Vegas to my knowledge.
Okay.
And one other band that has never played Vegas that I think would just, if they could play the right venue with on the right tour package, I think they would open a lot of eyes. It's a band from France called Hangman's Chair. They're what they call themselves slow doom, I think. They're a slow, sludgy doomy, but over the course of the last 2 or 3 albums, they've become increasingly more melodic. They have a phenomenal singer. This dude that's singing for them, I'm like, why is this band not larger than they are?
Okay.
They are so good, and they've got a good sound. They sound great live. They sound good on the albums. But those 2 bands, Ulcerate and Hangman's Chair, if they announced that they were touring in the States and they came to Vegas, I would spend a lot of money to see them.
Do you think they would play on the same bill? Would they be good on the same bill?
No.
2 different.
2 different genres.
Okay.
Ulcerate would be more on they would be on a death metal package.
Okay.
Then Hangman's Chair could play with a lot of different bands, but I would say they would probably stick to more like a rock metal audience.
We need a good venue again here. We've lost some venues.
We've got a few still. But yeah, I'm with you on that. It would be nice if we could get something like the Huntridge in terms of capacity.
Yeah.
It'd be cool.
What artists, think back to your Vegas memories, right? Think back to like your high school, because I always go back to high school or college days, because that's usually when we had the money and time to go to a lot of these places, right? So if you think back to those days, what artist takes you right back to those days? So what artist would be emblematic of your Vegas memories? Like if you hear their music, what takes you right back to those days?
It's Metallica. One of the first, they were probably the second big show I saw, and they're the whole reason why I got into local music. It started with Metallica, and then when I was old enough to start going to local shows, I got excited about that.
Yeah.
But once I heard Metallica, I fell in love with metal.
Yeah.
And it just catapulted me into, okay, now I can go to local shows. And that's when I started going to see Hell.
Yeah.
And I just moved from there. But Metallica, because that's all I listened to back in those days when from the age of 11, 12 years old, all versions. I was one of the guys that I didn't care about Load and Reload. I love those albums. I remember when Load came out and couldn't wait to get my hands on the album because there was like a 5 or 6 year gap between Black Album and Load. And everybody in Boulder, that's where I grew up. The guys that I hung out with were like, we want to know because everybody had heard Until It Sleeps, the first single, and everybody was not sure. Oh, they sold out, blah, blah. When I got the album in my hand.
I think that's an easy cop-out. When they don't know what else to say about like an actual criticism, it's easy to say, oh, they sold out.
Sure. But yeah, so that's an easy one. It's Metallica. Been like staple musically in my life. Now, obviously, as the years have gone on, I've gotten older. I've gotten into other bands that I love and I admire. It's Metallica for me all the way through.
So have you seen them every time they come to town?
Just about. The only time I didn't see them in the past 10 years was Rock in Rio. When we had that Rock in Rio, I was going through some stuff physically, and I just couldn't be there.
Where all have they played that you've seen them here in town? Because there's other venues they've played.
Soundwaves Stadium for the last leg of the Black Album. They played Thomas and Mack Center several times. They played Cashman Field on the Reload tour when they had Jerry Cantrell opening for them. They played Mandalay Bay. They played Allegiant. They played the festival grounds for Rock in Rio, which I didn't attend that one. But yeah, they've jumped around quite a bit.
Which venue did you think was the best for them as far as sound?
It would have been Thomas and Mack. They sounded absolutely amazing on Load and the St. Anger tour. St. Anger tour, everybody was mad at him because of that album. Because, some kind of monster and stuff. And best friend and I, James, went again. And that's a funny story I can tell you real quick. Tickets went on sale for that show. I was pissed off at Ticketmaster. And I was pissed off at Metallica because that's when tickets started getting really expensive. And I went down to Ticketmaster on a Saturday morning to get tickets for that show. And I turned around and walked away. I said, I'm not paying that. And I called my best friend. He was in San Diego at the time. I said, we're not going. I'm not spending that kind of money. And back then, I think they were asking $60 or $70 for like general seating.
Okay.
Well, he goes, don't worry, I'm coming down that weekend anyways. He came down. We were in the Galleria Mall in Henderson. And I said, hey, you want to go up to the customer service desk and see if we can get, lucky on tickets? They were selling chill seats the day before the show, and we got 2 seats to see them. First section up from the stage.
No.
We were like, right there, their face. So yeah, but I think, not to get off track, but yeah, they sounded really good at Thomas and Mack. They sounded good in Mandalay Bay too. I saw them on the Hardwired tour there too. They sounded really good, but I think they sounded the best in Thomas and Mack for sure.
I just wonder, because sometimes different venues with the acoustics or how they set it up.
Elite Stadium does not sound good for concerts.
Really?
Sound it's such a huge dome, and the sound just ricochets off of stuff, and they didn't sound. I don't think, we've talked to a lot of people that have seen shows there, and I'll say the same thing. It doesn't sound good in there.
All right. So thinking back in high school, I know you were a baseball player.
Mm-hmm.
Where'd you hang out in high school?
Where did I hang out? Spent a lot of time at Wayland Field in Boulder City. I spent a lot of time at my buddy's house on Shoshone Way, where we started our first rock metal garage band. We were through and through. I remember running our own electrical circuits and hanging our own drywall, because his parents had a garage where it was unfinished. Spent a lot of time.
Did you ever blow the circuit breakers?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just spent a lot of time going to record stores. Back then, it was Tower Records. We used to get excited about going to Virgin, Megastore, Caesar's shops, because back in those days, actually had death metal sections.
Yes.
So it was like metal, death metal, rock.
Little subgenres.
It's cool.
Are there any places from that time that don't exist anymore that you miss? You're like, man, I wish that place existed.
Like a musical place?
Yeah, like Tower Records.
I miss Tower so much. I miss Warehouse music, because at one point in time, Warehouse transitioned into selling used CDs. And I remember I had a friend at the time working on one on Sunset Mountain Vista, and I would call him, his name Chris.
Yeah.
Actually, Chris Babbitt, he's a local musician. He was working there at the time. And I would call him like, hey, let me know if this or this comes in. And he wouldn't call me.
Yeah.
And so I found some really rare stuff in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I miss the record stores that don't exist anymore. Tower for sure. Oh, Mahoney's Drum Shop.
Oh, yeah.
Mahoney's Drum Shop.
I remember Mahoney's.
Yeah, they had 2 locations. They had one downtown and one on like Marion Parkway, Trop area.
Near Moby Grape.
Yeah. Yeah. Moby Grape was in that shopping center.
Yeah. Did you go to Moby's?
No, but my older brother did when he was in his band.
I was going to say, I don't know if you were old enough to. Moby Grape before it closed.
Yeah, my mom was in a relationship with one of the co-owners of Moby Grape, and his other co-owner was the first foreman that I worked for when I was in my apprenticeship.
So did you get in? We said
no. I heard a lot of stories about it. My brother, who went to high school at Western, played in a band out here called Zephys. He also co-founded the band Apocrypha.
Okay.
It's Tony Fredinelli from, I think it's Third Eye Blind.
Yeah.
He was in a band with Tony back then, and they would play Battle of the Bands shows at Moby Grape.
I've been to a couple of the Battle of the Bands at Moby Grape.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the electricians that I still work with, he's much older than I am. He went to a lot of shows there. So it's funny because the only reason why I found out about Moby Grape was by complete accident. It was by my foreman that I was working for when I was a first year apprentice.
Yeah. I
don't know how we got on the subject of it. Next thing I know, he's telling me this story, and then he says Frank Dudenhofer, and then he says mother's name. And I went, what? And then I'm telling my brother Dave, who at that time was living in Idaho, I think, and I'm like, dude, this is such a small town.
It's a very small town. Yeah. Did you ever go to any of the smaller venues to see bands? You mentioned some of the bigger ones like Sam Boyd,
Yeah. There was back in the 90s. For me, it was the late 90s when I was old enough to start going. But it was Hemlock and the local bands that they played with back in the late 90s and early 2000s would rent out an Elks Lodge. One that they rented out the most was out there in Henderson off the Boulder Highway in Lake Mead. And I just think this is the coolest thing. They were so excited and determined to play, they would take egg crates, stack them up, put plywood on top of them, and that was the stage. And I remember taking the cat bus out of Boulder City. It would drop us off on Boulder Highway right across the street from what now is Albertson. So it was on the northeast corner of Boulder Highway, Lake Mead. We would get dropped off there and we would walk probably a mile down the Elks Lodge just to go see a show on a Friday or Saturday night. And we were in junior high at the time, so we'd be at school on Friday going, oh, man, I can't wait to see Hemlock and Mindset Rage. Back then, there was a lot of killer local metal.
So they do all ages.
Really cool. So there was that venue, and then they were doing shows at the Huntridge. Everybody knows how badass the Huntridge was. They were doing local shows there. And there's a few others that were sprinkled around that I can't remember the name off the top of my head. But
what's a song that you really liked when you were younger that maybe doesn't hold the same appeal now? That maybe you listen to now and you go, man, what was I thinking? We're in there one.
If I'm being honest with you, I don't really have one. I think it's just because I'm really nerdy in the sense
That's fair.
I go back, if I'm at work working, I'll go back and listen to music that I used to listen to when I was younger that I haven't listened to in years.
Okay.
And I'll go back and I'll think to myself, wow, this is really fun.
Really?
And it could be anything from like 90s rock, it could be grunge, stuff like that. It's all over the map, but I haven't really thought about that.
Okay.
That's a good question.
That's fair.
That's a really good question.
That's fair.
I want to try to answer it, but no, I mean,
You just trying to say you have really great taste in music, Mike?
I do.
A little music sound there, are you?
Not a snob, but I really, if I'm being honest with you, I appreciate a lot of different bands. I appreciate a lot of different genres. That's gotten me in trouble over the years with friends and bandmates.
Yeah.
But that's just how I've been. My parents used to listen to Eric Clapton and Fleetwood Mac and
Sure.
all that kind of, the Everly Brothers, all that stuff. Of course, back then, we didn't know who they were.
Do you have a song or an album that you think is the most underrated that's out there that people like don't know about, that people really should know about this?
I'm going to throw two bands out there. Rush is in there again.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
start with Dream Theater. Dream Theater
Okay.
an album called Awake,
Okay.
which I think people might disagree with me and say, no, that's not an underrated album. But I've talked to a lot of people that say they like progressive rock and metal that don't really talk about that album. I think that album is amazing. It's got one of the best productions on it. Drum, guitar, just all band production. It sounds amazing. There's two albums that Rush did that are not really looked upon, I guess, from people don't really look upon them as even some of their best, but I think they are. I think they're amazing. Hold Your Fire and Power Windows. Very synthy albums, but the songwriting and the playing on them is just friggin' out of this world.
Okay.
And I think I love listening to them to this day. I've been listening to them for the past 23 years.
Okay.
I put those albums on and it puts me in the best mood, and I listen to them and try to put myself like what it looked like when those guys got a room and they started constructing those songs, because they're layered. A lot of drumming, there's a lot of synth, a lot of guitar melodies and solos.
So you think they really stand the test of time?
I do. It's just not part of the favorites that most people know. Rush to 2112, Living Pictures, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I like listening to the albums. They're not as popular.
Do you think there's a song or an album out there that's way overrated?
I won't say any band names or anything,
Okay.
but there's a lot of modern metal and rock that it's too perfect. Everything's to a click. Everything's to a grid, edited. It's just the way that they record. It's like you might as well just take the band out of the equation and do a drum machine and a fabricated guitar track and a fabricated vocal, because they're using pitch correction and super clean guitars, super clean drums. The drums nowadays have become very same. There's some bands that can pull it off. Not me. And I don't like that. I'm okay with production work. I'm okay with some blending of the samples, but there's gotta still have to have like that natural real element. There's a lot of bands out there nowadays that are just doing
Taking too much of the machine into it and making it too perfect, taking the human equation out.
yeah. But yeah, I don't want to actually say a band name or something.
Don't want to out anybody.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't be a fan of like the auto tune here?
I guessed it. There's just bands that use it too much. I do like bands that do use it, but I've also seen them live. I'm like, they can do it without pitch correction.
I'm always impressed. Like, I could never get on stage. You know what I mean? I would be too shy. So anybody that can get up there,
Mhm.
I'm never going to bash anybody that can do that, because that takes a lot of guts.
Take a lot of courage, a lot of practice, a lot of dedication.
Yes. So even if you bomb, I'm going to celebrate that, because you had the guts to not only get up there,
Yeah.
but then go all the way through.
Be the same. You don't always know if people are going to like your music. And the fact that you're up there with your bandmates and you're going, hey guys, let's go up there and show them what we do.
And even if it's not to everybody's liking, the fact that you had the courage to go all the way through that should be celebrated, because that takes facing your fears to do that.
It's really difficult when you're having technical difficulties. There's going to be people in the crowd that are going, oh, what happened?
Or we're here for the big man. Who are you guys? You're just hoping.
Hurry up. 20 minutes, get off stage. And it's like,
that's right. That's right. Is there a song or an album that you enjoy that people would be surprised to hear that you like? That they'd be like, no, I never knew you like that.
Yeah. Can I use two different bands?
Yeah, absolutely.
Steve Perry's solo album that he put out, Traces, that blew me away just because he still sounds amazing. And
He's got a great voice.
Yeah. He went away for a long time. I love that album so much. It's very calming. It's just enjoyable to hear him sing. He's got musicians that are playing behind him on an album. He's got co-writers and stuff, I'm sure. But that album, and then an album that people would be surprised that I really like was The Cure.
The top.
Yeah. And the only reason why I know about that album and come to like it is because one of my first foremen when I was in my apprenticeship program on the job site, just one day talking about music on break or lunch. He knew I was a metalhead. He was like, I'm not really into metal. I'm into The Cure. Check this album out. He goes, I think you're going to like it. And I took it home and drove my wife nuts with it. And
I'm not surprised, but The Cure has some deep stuff that gets to a lot of people, messes people up.
Push that aside for a minute. Musically, what he does with that band and the way they put their songs together, awesome band. Now, I don't have all their albums, and I think that's the only Cure album that I own. And I'm not a fan of all their stuff. But there was, I'd say from the top, the next 3 or 4 albums after that are very strong. And they're one of those bands from the 80s that still to this day, when they tour or they play a festival, they sound friggin' amazing.
So, little side tangent. I asked you a long time ago to go listen to Nick Cave's O'Malley's Bar.
Yeah.
That slow, grungy that I said is like the most brutal song.
Yeah.
All 3 parts. Did you ever go listen to it?
Don't know if I did. I know you sent me the link to it. Don't know if I did.
I still want somebody to put that to Thrash. That is my go-to. Like I'm in the worst mood ever.
Yeah.
That'll take me out of it. It's so brutal, and I still want somebody to make a threat. But it's so slow and grungy. It's shocking how really disturbing the song is. And I still, to this day, I think if somebody puts it to Thrash, it will shock anybody.
I need to listen.
You really do need to listen to it. Maybe I'll play it for you after this.
Yes. Yeah. You might have showed it to me last year when I was over here last. Briefly. I don't think I actually went on.
I don't think you probably had time to listen to it, but I was thinking about it the other day, and because I had a really bad week, and then I knew I was going to interview you, and I'm like, gosh, I got to ask Mike that, because to this day, I still think the thrash metal world would turn on its head if somebody would actually put that to a thrashy song, because I think Nick Cave's lyrics are still so underrated, what he does.
What's the name of the song?
O'Malley's Bar.
O'Malley's Bar.
Yeah. What's the record that means the most to you? Or do you have one?
The record that means the most to me would probably be Metallica's Black Album.
Any special reason?
Just from a standpoint of they just, aside from falling in love with them and them being the band that really pushed me. They're the band that made me start off. That album, they stepped out of the thrash stuff, went for a more direct, short, and concise songwriting thing, and they beefed up their sound. They talked about it throughout the years, what their goal was recording an album. But when it came out, every friggin' song on it was, and it was just impressive to see a band that was Metallica's before themselves. They don't like to call themselves a thrash band.
Yeah.
But they wrote some thrash metal between Kill 'Em All and Justice. Yeah. Now, you're in between those albums, on those albums, they had songs that were more groove. They had ballads and stuff, but they were so good at thrash, but they were also really good at groove. And then when they did the Black Album, it it was hard to believe. It was hard to believe that, like, James Hetfield, for example, his singing from Justice for All to Black Album, that jump that he made was just friggin' amazing.
Yeah.
It's like, I've talked about this with other local musicians. It's like that album was recorded at a moment in time where the planets aligned, because when they recorded it, they released it, and they did this absolute amazing tour where they had the stage in the center. They were just larger than life. And that really took them to the level of just like the biggest metal band. Yeah, the biggest metal band ever. So,
did you see them when they went on tour with the Big Four?
no.
What's the song or album that you love that like popular consensus? Like, is there one you like that your buddies go, wow? No,
I can't believe you listen to that crap. It would probably, if I'm being honest with you, I've even gotten into some country recently. I listen to country. I'll be really specific. There's an album that Kenny Chesney did called Song for the Saints. So I think that's one of my favorite. I love listening to that album when I just want to chill out. I'm not a huge country fan at all. When I was younger, never, ever.
Yeah.
It was just one of the songs off that album came through, and I went, okay, I want to check that album out. I'm curious. And I think I watched the live footage of him and his band, and I was like, wow, he's actually really good. I don't like all of his albums. That album I do like, because I think it's one of those albums where the whole thing is good.
Do you have a song or record that you think is like the sexiest record? Now, you can decline. You don't have to answer. Or like has the best like build up. You know what I mean?
Help me out here. Give me an example of what would define sexy. Because there's not really a lot of heavy music that you could say is sexy. Wow. That's
like, what was this you and your wife played for your wedding? Did you?
Thank you. It was the re-recorded version by Duran. Led Zeppelin song.
Yeah, did you choose that, or did
she did?
Oh,
yeah. She texted it to me one day and said, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And she goes, "It's the Duran version." And I'm like, "I actually like that better than the original. The Led Zeppelin version, the original was great, great, nothing wrong with it. But I like what Duran did to it." And so, yeah, I would say that, and I would say probably.
What do you guys have? Do you and your wife have your song? Do you know what I mean?
Thank you. Yes, thank you. But now you got to think of some of Steve Perry's solo stuff in the 80s.
He's got such a great voice.
I don't care. I don't care what people think of me. But his solo stuff. Yes, and some of the stuff he did in Journey was Who's Crying Now, or Girl Can't Help It, Send Her My Love, fall in that category. I love those songs. That's an interesting question.
People always go with like the R&B stuff, like Marvin Gaye. You know what I mean? But I think that's a little too easy.
Well, my older brothers would probably say more.
Okay.
Yeah, that type of. Because that's the era that they're from.
Okay.
My parents listened to a lot of Steve Perry's solo stuff, Journey and Fleetwood Mac when we were kids. But he wrote a lot of love songs.
Well, and Nick Cave. I'm a big Nick Cave fan. He's got some piney love songs and huge breakup songs that just tear your heart out. O'Malley's Bar is not one of and I've got a couple that I think have some really great build-ups that are just like the storm rolling, and you can just feel the emotional build-up.
Yeah.
And for me personally, especially if it's a male voice and as a female listening to them, that kind of torture it really hits a female listener.
Yeah.
So that's why I like to ask,
it's a nerve.
Right. And so as a female who goes to a lot of these metal shows, there aren't very many women in the audience. So when the men are singing, it's a homoerotic. Most of the audience is male. I don't think they're really singing to the men in the audience.
Yeah.
So who's the sexy song for? It's like the 4 women in the audience, right?
I'm so glad to get my wife to go with me to more metal shows. And it's just
doesn't like to go.
It's not her thing. She's a classic rock girl, and she likes the laid back, calm stuff. And she's taken me I've gone to some shows with her and seen some bands that I didn't think I would enjoy. And she proved me wrong. Dave Matthews, Florence and the Machine, which not my style of music. I'm never going to buy their albums. I'm never going to go
but you
my
can
way.
Appreciate the concert.
Yeah. She's like, no, come with me. And I'm like, I want to go. I want to see what it's all about. And I had a good time, and I enjoyed the performance. I was like,
you probably enjoyed it. She enjoyed it.
That helps for sure. Yeah, that helps for sure. Now, there are certain bands I just won't go see.
You'll go see The Cure if they. Exodus doesn't have a power.
It's even close.
Not even close.
They're one of those thrash bands. And Slayer doesn't have a ballad either.
I've seen a lot of Cannibal Corpse shows. The most Is George talking about his neck and saying, "I'll steal your girl"?
Yeah.
Between.
The closest thing that Campbell ever came to a ballad is a song off of Gallery of Suicide called From Skin to Liquid.
He's not going to say any of that in the show. I'm just saying.
Not going to sing about.
No. Like I said, the closest he gets is, "I could leave here with any one of your girls." And I've heard him say that in between a song. But so, yeah, there's not a sexy Queen of a Court song. But it's funny to watch the shows because, like I said, there's like 4 girls in the whole audience. I go to people watch. They're the greatest shows to people watch.
For sure. You know what? I'm happy when people watch it. You really get to see people light up. And I don't get there 5 hours before the show starts.
No.
But once I get in and I have 1 or 2 drinks, I start hanging out with everybody and watching the bands play. I do look around and it makes me happy. I think it's really cool. That's people's escape.
Yes.
It's music. Music really transforms people.
The best thing about all those shows is the bands will all come out once they perform and interact with the audience while the other bands are playing. You never see that at any of the bigger shows. But those thrash shows and those metal shows and those punk shows, they will. And people leave them alone. They'll come up and high five them and get pictures, but they don't swarm them. Yep. They don't, they hang out with them at the merch tables and for a few seconds and then they go away. It's just the greatest thing. What is one Vegas artist album that you think everyone should have in their collection? Because we have artists from Vegas. So like, if you can shout out to people who are from Vegas, who are musicians, like, hey, this is a person from Vegas. Everybody should have this person's record.
Any of the Hemlock albums. Okay. The people in Vegas that are fans of heavy metal music and still support and make an attempt to go out and support local music. And also there's a local band by the name of Minus. They're amazing. In my opinion, they're arguably the most talented metal band that's out of Vegas. I'm good friends with their lead singer, Miles, and phenomenal. Their drummer's friggin' amazing. Mauricio is one of the most amazing drummers. I've seen him play several times. Okay. And Miles brought him on and they've done 2 full-length albums together. Just floored at how good this dude is. So if you're a Vegas local and you support local Vegas metal and you're into all that, you got to have Midas and Hemlock in there. That's my personal opinion.
Not going to plug Guttural Secrete.
That's an acquired taste.
Well, yeah, I've read some of your lyrics. Yeah. I don't know that I'm an adult.
Of course.
Lyrics.
And I say that I'm proud.
Yes.
Of our band and I'm proud of Nemesism, but that's definitely an acquired taste. So, but if we're speaking about others, definitely Hemlock and Minus for sure. I'm sure I'm forgetting some local bands I've seen over the years and I've gone to their shows and supported. But those are the 2 standouts because Hemlock was the local band that really helped me get into wanting to buy my first drum kit and start my band. And then Minus was a band that I came across some mutual friends early 2000s and mid 2000s where I just saw one of their first shows at the Cheyenne Saloon. And I told my wife, I'm like, I'd like to play for those guys someday because I like their style and I think they're friggin' amazing.
And they've been around for a while.
Yeah, Minus has been around for a long time too. And Minus and Hemlock have played shows together and stuff.
And they play here in town. You guys you're recording now for a second EP.
Pre-production right now. Like we've got rough demo tracks put together and Randy's working on pre-pro guitar and Andrew's working on lyrics and stuff like so.
So what else do you have in the works right now?
This is where I was going to get selfish. So Nemesism, new EP, which is only going to have 4 tracks on it, 3 originals, 1 cover. That's going to get hopefully recorded by the end of the year and then probably released early first quarter next year.
Need you release it before that for people to put in their Christmas stock?
So there's that. And then we are in the very beginning stages of talking about doing a new Guttural release. It won't be a full length. We don't even know if it's going to be an EP. It could be singles, but we're talking about it because 2026 will be the 20th year anniversary of our first full length, which was received really well in the underground brutal death metal market. It's talked about all the time. People love that album. They give us really high marks for that album. So without getting too carried away with that, we're talking about it. It doesn't mean anything's going to happen, but we have started conversations like, hey, how do you feel about this? Blues already, hey, I got some riffs. I already got a song title. Randy and I haven't talked about it other than we just know that right now, if we do decide to do something for that, there probably won't be any shows attached to it, at least right now. It would be more or less just some songs together.
And where can we find you? I know you've got Nemesism has a Facebook page. Correct?
Yeah, so Nemesism on Facebook. I think we have a website, nemesism.us, and Guttural's on there. There's not a whole lot of updating on Guttural because we've been pretty much dormant for the last several years. But as far as activity for me, it's
Just on
Nemesism pages for sure. And we update when we do something new, or which is very minimal nowadays. We update it, whether it's a t-shirt or if Randy likes to post little video snippets of him and I working on new parts in the garage.
He likes to put you on things.
Yeah.
Lots of clips of you playing the drums on Facebook,
Yeah.
but I don't see other people.
Well, that's where I set my little iPhone up.
Oh, is it fine?
You want to know why he does that? And it's a good idea. It's like, hey, we just wrote this really cool part. We don't want to forget it. Can we record it? And then we'll record it and we'll watch it and we'll go, you know what? That turned out pretty good. Do you mind if I post it on the page? You know, even though I'm playing absolutely horrible, he's like, no, it's good content. People will dig it.
But I notice they always put you on. They don't put like the guitar players or anybody singing.
You'll probably see some of that footage later this year, early next year, when we actually get in and track the parts for the new EP, which I'm really excited about. The 3 original songs we have are really good, heavy, brutal, some really cool guitar stuff. And then the cover, which we demoed, real rough demo. Andrew actually did put his demo vocals on it a few weeks ago. And I was blown away at how good he sounded, because the song that we're covering, it's an old school technical death metal song from the mid to late 90s of a band that went away for a long time. They recently got together for a couple shows, but I wasn't aware that he was able to get his vocal in that range. So I was floored. I was like, wow, this is good. Bird out, killer. So I'm excited.
You're not going to tell us what the cover is? Can't tell? Give me a surprise?
It's going to be a surprise.
Okay.
I don't think a lot of people would expect us to do that song. I think it's going to turn out good. They'll be happy with it. We went in rhythmically, did our thing to it without changing it too much.
Okay.
It's going to be cool.
So Mike Fitzgerald, thanks for being our guest today on Sin City Soundwaves. Thank all of you for listening to Sin City Soundwaves, and please support us by listening to us, giving us a follow on social media, and please recommend us to your friends and colleagues. Make sure to follow the Sin City Soundwaves podcast on our social media at Facebook, Instagram, Linktree, and X. Sin City Soundwaves podcast is a production of Thirsty Sin Productions, created, hosted, mixed, and engineered by Denise Shaw, PhD, produced and written by Denise Shaw, PhD. Find out more about former and upcoming Sin City Soundwaves podcast episodes and our sponsors on all social media platforms through the Sin City Soundwaves podcast link tree. Sure, to apply overdub for certain sections of your script, I'll need a bit more detail. Could you specify which parts you want to be overdubbed, or if there are any particular lines or speakers you want to focus on? Additionally, if there's a certain voice or tone you prefer for the overdub, let me know as well.